We have sea-level effects, ridiculous and convenient moments, mediocre acting, but it was the dialogue that really had me cringing. Hello everyone, my name is Erin James. This is a review of the movie Final Destination Bloodlines, written by Guy Busick and Laurie Evans Taylor, directed by Zach Lipovsky and Adam B. Stein. This is another installment in the Final Destination franchise that is probably more memorable and more close to the hearts of people in their 30s and 40s at this point, and maybe younger people are interested in it just because it's a horror movie, but it's really the 30 and 40-year-olds that have this tied to their childhood. Personally, I had only seen the first three Final Destination movies. I enjoyed the first two, or at least I remember I did, and I remember seeing the third one a few times and just enjoyed some of the deaths, but was never really invested into the movie, was not interested enough to say it was as good as the first two, and then the sequels that followed, I never watched them. I saw some of the trailers, but was never really invested in them. And we get to this movie here that is laughable at this point, in my opinion, because it seems very dependent on the nostalgia and trying to bring back that same audience that fell in love with the Final Destination franchise when we were first introduced to the IP. The issue is that it doesn't deliver in the same way as the earlier movies. This movie spends a good 20 minutes setting up for that dramatic opening sequence that takes out so many people on the board. That is a premonition or vision. And when we got to that moment, it wasn't deserving of such a long setup. I think it could have done better. I think it could have done more. And maybe it was the lack of practical effects that made it feel that it was clearly fake, that it was clearly CGI, and it just didn't feel as real as what I remember the first or three deaths were in the first three movies. I do, however, appreciate that after that moment, we do dive straight into the research, straight into finding one of the survivors of previous premonitions, and our character, our lead, trying to figure out what's really going on and why things are happening the way they do. This is from just watching the first three, I didn't watch the ones afterwards. This was a different approach to a lead, and I think was pretty clever, and I think was innovative, I would say. It just didn't deliver or didn't execute the way it could have. And there are pretty long moments or periods where we do not really see a death. And I think to make up for lost time, we get double kills. But that wasn't enough to satisfy me. I felt that if we were going to do these expositional moments, that it could have been more intriguing. And that's where the lack of good dialogue comes in. And the crazy part is, I'm not mad at this movie because the quality was what I expected. And I didn't expect it to live up to my enjoyment of the first two. And I knew it was going to be very commercialized, and maybe that's why I wasn't so interested in the sequels, because you can see it become that. The most interesting one, the most satisfying one, was the one that you see set up in the Final Destination trailers. Not the one in the tattoo parlor, the first one in the backyard during the barbecue, because that felt like Final Destination to me. There were so many setups, and you see everything getting set up. And there are a lot of misdirects and a lot of tricks and teases and kind of building up that tension in you, that uneasiness that you feel, thinking that, trying to figure out who is going to be next on the list and how is it going to happen. And I thought that was a great setup. Again, it's a funny death, but it's in Final Destination fashion. And the later ones, it's just things setting up just for it, and then it happens, and then we move on. And that became less satisfying, and you weren't trying to guess how it was going to happen. You weren't on edge. It just happened. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Curious what y'all thought, if you did watch it, if you actually were interested enough to buy a ticket to go watch it in theaters. Until next time, y'all take care of each other, check up on one another, make sure you check up on yourself, and remember, potential has no limit.